Have you ever felt like the whole world is moving forward without you? Like every time you open your phone, you see someone celebrating a new job, a new car, a new life, while you're still waking up to the same ceiling, the same worries, the same unfinished dreams? It's a feeling that sinks deep, a quiet weight in your chest. You tell yourself, tomorrow, I'll change. But when tomorrow arrives, it looks and feels exactly like yesterday. And the day after that, and the day after that. It's a loop, a cycle, and you feel stuck. This isn't just your story. It's the story of so many of us, caught between the life we have and the life we imagine. It's the story of a young man named Jack. In a crowded city, under humming wires and dusty windows, lived Jack. He wasn't stupid, or lazy, or broken. He was just like you and me, full of quiet ideas, full of private promises, and full of excuses he tried so hard not to notice. Every morning, Jack's alarm would ring 3 times before he finally pulled himself out of bed. The first thing he did was scroll through social media, his thumb flicking past photos of other people living their best lives, traveling the world, studying abroad, starting businesses. For a few seconds, he would imagine himself there with them, feeling the sun on his face in a foreign country, or the pride of launching his own project. Then, the images would disappear, and he'd be back in his small room, the reality of his life crashing back down. He was rushing to catch the same late bus, holding the same cracked phone, and wearing the same tired expression. At work, he was a spectator. He watched his colleagues volunteer for new projects, improve their English, and talk confidently about their plans for the future. Jack would nod, smile, and even laugh at their jokes, but inside, he felt like a ghost. It was like he was standing on the outside of his own life, looking in through a glass window, watching everyone else live while he was just existing. He dreamed of more. He desperately wanted to help his family, to move to a better place, to finally speak English clearly and confidently. He wanted to travel, to see new things, and to feel a sense of pride when he said his own name. But he was learning a hard lesson. Dreams without action are like birds without wings. They can fly all they want in your mind, but they can't carry you anywhere in the real world. Day after day, his life repeated like a song stuck on the same verse. The melody was familiar, but it was starting to sound sour. And slowly, without him even noticing, something began to happen. When you don't learn to master your life, life quietly starts making decisions for you. And Jack had no idea how close that decision already was. Everything was about to change. Tomorrow arrived quietly, just like any other day, but it did not stay quiet for long. Jack woke up with a familiar heaviness in his chest. He grabbed his phone and saw the message he had been waiting for all week, his heart pounding in his throat. It was from the company where he'd had a big interview. "Thank you for your time. We have decided to move forward with another candidate." The words were polite, professional, but they felt as sharp as a knife. This job was meant to be his escape, his proof that his life could finally start moving. And now, with one cold, simple sentence, that door slammed shut in his face. From the next room, his mother called out, asking about the result. Jack tried to make his voice sound normal, to keep it steady, but it cracked as he told her. When she heard the news, there was a long, heavy silence that felt louder than any shouting could. "We needed that job, Beta," she said softly, her voice filled with a gentle disappointment that hurt more than anger. "Your father is tired. We are all so tired." Her words weren't an accusation, but they filled the space between them with a sense of failure. He left the house and caught the bus, carrying that silence with him like a heavy coat. He arrived at work late, breathless, and froze just inside the door when he heard 2 co-workers talking. "Did you hear? Jack failed that interview again," one of them said. The other one laughed. "Always talking about changing, but he never does." They didn't know he was standing right behind them. Their joke, meant for each other, became a mirror reflecting his deepest fears back at him. Always talking, never changing. Those words hit him harder than the rejection email ever could. By lunchtime, Jack couldn't think clearly. The numbers on his computer screen swam before his eyes, blurring into a meaningless jumble. He felt numb. On the way home, he decided to walk instead of taking the bus. The street was a storm of noise, car horns, loud voices, blaring advertisements, and it all seemed to be crashing inside his head, amplifying the chaos he felt within. At a street corner, he noticed an old man sweeping the sidewalk. While the world rushed past in a blur of motion and sound, the man's movements were slow, steady, and peaceful. It was as if he was listening to a song that only he could hear. On impulse, Jack walked up to him. "Sir," he asked, his voice barely a whisper, "how can you be so calm in all this noise?" The old man looked up and smiled, a kind, knowing smile. He gently tapped his own chest. "Because, son," he said, "your life is like a room full of noise. Until you learn to master the noise inside here, you will never be able to hear your own music." For a long moment, Jack just stared at the old man. The words echoed inside him, bouncing off the walls of that noisy, chaotic room in his mind. "How do I master the noise?" he asked quietly, his voice filled with a desperate hope. The man leaned on his broom, his eyes full of a gentle wisdom. "You start with one small thing," he said. "One corner of the room. One promise you make to yourself. And you keep it for 7 days. No excuses, no exceptions. Just one small, consistent action." That night, Jack lay awake in the dark, the day's events replaying in his mind like a movie. The failed interview, his mother's tired voice, his co-workers' cruel laughter, and the old man's calm, piercing eyes. He finally understood. His life felt like a car speeding through a heavy storm with nobody holding the steering wheel. Every drop of rain hitting the windshield was a worry, a regret, a distraction. No wonder he kept crashing. He was being tossed around by the storm instead of driving through it. He got out of bed, found an old notebook he rarely used, and opened it to the first blank page. Under the dim light of his lamp, he wrote in slow, careful letters, as if carving the words into stone. "For the next 7 days, I will wake up 1 hour earlier. I will not touch my phone. I will just sit, breathe, and write down my goals." The first morning was a battle. The alarm rang, and his hand instinctively flew to hit the snooze button. It was muscle memory, the path of least resistance. But he stopped himself. He remembered the feeling of the car skidding out of control. Forcing his hand away from the phone felt like grabbing the steering wheel in that stormy car for the very first time. His hands were shaking, his heart was racing, and his eyes were still half closed, but he sat up. He won the first small fight. Downstairs, the world was still sleeping. The silence in the house felt strange, almost loud after the constant noise in his head. He made a cup of tea, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the blank page of his notebook. His thoughts were like a radio stuck between stations, full of static. Worries about money, shame about past mistakes, the gnawing fear of another failure. Slowly, deliberately, he began to tune the radio. He ignored the static and focused on finding a clear signal. He wrote down 3 simple lines. "Help my family, improve my English, find work that I respect." Each word he wrote was like turning the dial just a little, pushing the noise away so his own voice, his own music, could finally come through. Day by day, the week continued. It wasn't perfect. Some mornings he was a few minutes late. Some days his writing was messy and his thoughts were scattered. But he kept the promise. Every single morning, he got up, left his phone alone, and sat with his notebook. And each time he did, it felt like tightening one loose screw in a shaking bridge. The bridge of his life still moved. It still swayed with the winds of doubt and fear. But for the first time, it no longer felt like it was about to fall apart. He was learning to hold the steering wheel, and he was finally ready to drive. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, remember that your journey also starts with one small step. Like and subscribe for more stories to help you find your own music. Have you ever felt like you're trying to move forward, but life keeps pulling you back? Like every time you take one step, a storm hits and pushes you 2 steps back? This is the story of Jack, and it might be your story too. Change doesn't move in a straight line. It moves like waves, forward and back, testing everything you say you want to become. After 7 days of waking up early, Jack started to feel something new. It was fragile, but it was real, a small sense of control. He was still broke, still living in the same tiny room, but when his alarm rang, he no longer felt completely powerless. Of course, that's when the storm arrived. It started with his father's sudden illness. One night, his dad came home holding his chest, breathing hard. Suddenly, Jack's life was a blur of hospital visits, medicine costs, and late-night worries. To make ends meet, he took on extra shifts at work, staying up later and waking up even earlier, his body just begging for rest. Then, at his job, his manager threw 2 new projects onto his desk. "If you want to grow here," he said coldly, "prove you can handle the pressure." Jack just nodded, but inside he felt his ship tilting, the water rising fast. The stress at home exploded into anger. One evening, his brother snapped at him. "You say you're changing, but look at us. Nothing is better." The words struck Jack like lightning. The old Jack, the one he was trying to leave behind, wanted to run. He wanted to hide under his blanket with his phone, scrolling endlessly until his feelings went numb. But the new Jack just sat on the edge of his bed, shaking. His mind was a raging sea. For 2 days he broke his morning promise. The alarm rang and he just turned it off. The ship was turning back toward the rocks. On the 3rd night, unable to sleep, he remembered the old man's voice from a story he'd heard. "Your life is like a room full of noise." And another image formed in his mind. A small ship in a violent storm. A captain gripping the wheel with bleeding hands. "Maybe mastering my life doesn't mean I never fall," he whispered to the empty room. "Maybe it just means I choose to stand up faster." The next morning, with red eyes and a heavy heart, he woke up before the sun. The storm was still there, but his hands were back on the steering wheel, ready to discover what quiet power might grow from this new kind of strength. Slowly, the storm around Jack didn't just disappear. His father still coughed at night, the bills were still on the table, and work was still demanding. But something inside him began to change. When the alarm rang, he no longer argued with it. He just rose, as if the sun knew his name. His room, once a battlefield of clothes, papers, and old food boxes, started to look like a place of intention. He folded his blanket. He cleared his desk. On the wall, he taped a small piece of paper with 3 lines. "Wake early, learn English, do one hard thing." Each morning, he checked them like a gentle promise to himself. At work, people noticed the change before he did. A colleague asked, "Why do you look so calm lately?" Another said, "You listen more now, you answer more clearly." Nothing dramatic had happened. There was no miracle job offer, no winning lottery ticket. But his face carried a quiet strength, the look of someone finally holding the steering wheel with both hands. Before, Jack was a passenger in his own life, pushed around by his emotions and circumstances. Now, he began to choose. When he felt tired, he still worked on one small task. When he felt scared, he still sent that job application. When he felt shy, he still practiced English for 15 minutes. Dear listener, Jack's change wasn't magic. It came from simple steps you can use too. First, choose one habit, not 10. Just one. Second, keep small promises to yourself every single day. Third, face one small discomfort on purpose. And fourth, reflect each night. What did I do well today? What can I improve tomorrow? Imagine doing this with your English, your studies, or your health. Step by step, your life may not look louder from the outside, but inside, you will begin to feel that same quiet power. And once you taste it, you can't forget it. A voice inside softly whispers, "Now it's your turn." Now Jack walks through the same city, but he is not the same person. The streets are still noisy, the problems are still real. Yet inside him, there is a quiet place that nothing can easily shake. He didn't escape his life. He learned to master it from the inside out. And you? Maybe you're where Jack started. Maybe your phone is full of other people's success, while your own dreams are waiting in the dark. You listen to stories like this, you feel inspired for a moment, and then life pulls you right back into the old routine. Here's the truth. If nothing changes in you, nothing will change for you. Your life is like a blank rope you are braiding every single day, knot by knot, habit by habit. Some knots are strong, kindness, effort, courage. Some knots are weak, excuses, delay, fear. No one else can braid this rope for you. Not your parents, not your teachers, not even this video. Only you. So here is your challenge. For the next 7 days, choose one area of your life to master. It can be your English, your health, your studies, your sleep. Make one clear, small rule for yourself. For example, I will study English for 15 minutes every day, or I will go to sleep before midnight, or I will move my body for 10 minutes. Write it down. Say it out loud. Keep that promise like it's a knot in your rope, like it's a piece of your future self. Now pause and tell us in the comments, what is the one habit you will master first? Share this video with a friend who feels stuck and invite them to join you on this journey. Subscribe to Tales with English, and let's grow this community of self-mastery together. Thanks for watching.